Okay, let's have a chat about how Mormons, aka members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, no longer want to be referred to as Mormons. But before we do that, just really quick, I have to point out something about your alternate options for shortening the very long name of the church. Unfortunately, both of those names are already taken. Both the Restored Church of Jesus Christ and the Church of Jesus Christ are already existing churches. They are spin-offs of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but they're both separate, different churches. So it would be really confusing and unhelpful if I was to use either of those names as a nickname for your church when they are already different churches and your church already has its own nicknames. Mormon has been used as a nickname for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for a long time. Only recently did the prophet of the church start doubling down on the fact that he does not want the church to be called Mormon or LDS. But the prophet, Russell Nelson, has had a problem with the term Mormon for a really long time. In October of 1990, Russell Nelson, who was then an apostle, gave an entire general conference talk dedicated to how we should not use the term Mormon because the proper name for the church is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But then 6 months later, another apostle, Gordon B. Hinckley, gave an entire talk about how Mormon means more good, and it's actually a very nice nickname. Gordon B. Hinckley actually had seniority over Russell M. Nelson at the time, so it's kind of funny that just 6 short months later at the very next conference, he wrote an entire talk about how it's fine, we can be Mormons, and left with the thought, Mormon means more good. If I was a betting woman, I would bet that Russell went home that night after conference and was like, "Ugh," because it's something that he personally really dislikes, obviously, from his previous talk. Now, about 20 years later, there was a new prophet, Thomas S. Monson, and he launched the I'm a Mormon campaign. It cost millions of dollars. They plastered I'm a Mormon, Mormon.org over billboards everywhere. They also spent a lot of money on this movie called Meet the Mormons. Now, it's important to note here that the prophet of the Mormon church is considered to be the only man on earth who speaks for God. So the idea to launch the I'm a Mormon campaign and the Meet the Mormons movie would have been considered by the church at large to be a revelation from God through the prophet. We want the world to know about the Mormons. But then the prophet Thomas Monson passed away, and his successor was none other than Russell Nelson, the guy who hates the nickname Mormon. And one of his first decrees as the new prophet was to tell the members that God is offended by the nickname Mormon. And as the prophet, it's not like he was telling everybody that this is just something that personally he did not like. He told everybody this was a revelation from God. The term Mormon is offensive. After Russell became the prophet, we also got to hear this tidbit from his wife Wendy, where she said that since he's now the prophet, he can do all of the things that he wanted to before, but couldn't do because he wasn't the prophet yet. It seems pretty clear to me that Russell has had beef with the term Mormon for a long time, but as he wasn't the prophet, he couldn't actually do anything about it. He also made sure to say, when he said that Mormon was offensive and that we should be called the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, he said that this isn't a rebranding. This has always been the name of the church, which is mostly true. I mean, the church went through a few different names before it settled on the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but nevertheless, to me, it does very much come across as first a personal vendetta and second, a rebrand. And I think personally, this is just my opinion, I think one of the reasons why is that a lot of people do not consider Mormons to be Christians. When they think of the term Mormon or LDS, they don't associate that with Christianity. But the church really, really wants to be seen as a Christian religion. I think this is also evidenced by the fact that the church has changed their little icon on Google Maps to a cross. The church has always stayed away from the symbol of the cross. Their little icon on Google Maps used to be the angel Moroni. Not anymore. And why is that? I think it's because this appears more Christian. And the different nickname options that they ask people to say instead of Mormon or LDS usually have something about Jesus in them. Even their new website is churchofjesuschrist.org, even though that's the name of a different church. It's very interesting, and to me what sticks out the most really is Thomas Monson as the prophet going through with the Meet the Mormons movie and the I'm a Mormon campaign, spending millions of dollars on that, and God was apparently totally fine with that. This inspired man of God who speaks for God did all of this, and God was like, yes, cool, I'm a Mormon. And then Russell Nelson comes along 10 years later and says that God is offended by that nickname and we're not going to use it anymore, and we're going to rename the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. Even though they're so famous, we're going to rename them because we want nothing to do with Mormon. Don't say the word Mormon anymore. That's not us. And we know that Russell Nelson personally had beef with that term forever ago. Anyway, all of that's just kind of fun and interesting to learn about. But as for a reply to Dave, the original commenter, about the name of the church, Dave, when I was born into the church, we were comfortable with calling ourselves Mormons. It was in our books, our magazines, our songs, and our church lessons. I grew up singing the song, I'm a Mormon, yes I am, and I love my Mormon boy, he is my pride and joy. I loved the Meet the Mormons movie, I was a Mormon, and I was very proud of that fact. I left the church before Russell Nelson told everybody that God was offended by the term Mormon. I personally, as somebody who was a Mormon and was happy about it, I'm personally comfortable with calling the church the Mormon Church. I totally understand if for yourself, you don't want to use the term Mormon anymore. However, I also would say that you probably shouldn't use the name of other churches when you're talking about your church. But you have the right to refer to yourself however you're most comfortable. I totally respect that. For me personally, I will continue to use the term Mormon, and I hope you understand.